We are Group 14, and for the subject Globalization and Business, we'll be looking at the oil and gas industry and conduct both a port forces and a pest analysis. You can find in the upper right corner who of our group is talking and presenting the slide at hand. The reason why we're interested in this $1.7 trillion industry is because it is on one hand a vital resource for our society and daily lives, and on the other hand has sparked great controversy because of its negative environmental impact.
Here we have a list of the 10 biggest oil producers in the world, with a significant difference between Saudi Arabia, US, and Russia in the amount of barrels produced per day. Four of these countries are members of the OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which hold 80% of the world's oil reserves. It was founded in 1960 in Iraq with the aim of controlling the supply and oil prices. These are the three categories in which the oil and gas industry is divided. Firstly, the upstream, which is based on two areas: the exploration, such as looking for hydrocarbon areas or evaluate the profitability of a project, and the second area is the production, which is the extraction process of the hydrocarbon. Secondly, we have the midstream as transportation and storage, and thirdly, the downstream, which is one of the most complex processes where crude oil is refined and natural gas is purified.
Regarding new entrants, we expect this threat to be relatively low in the oil and gas industry. There are a couple of reasons for this which we'll elaborate on in this slide. First of all, the investments to become active in the oil and gas industry are very high. This means that a firm would have to have a lot of capital ready to invest in a new infrastructure to set up their supply chain. Apart from that, oil and gas are also finite resources, with 90% of the existing oil reservoirs already being discovered and used by the existing companies. Furthermore, it will be very difficult for a new company to differentiate themselves from the already existing companies and attract new customers.
In the oil and gas industry, there exist three different benchmarks. Firstly, the Brent blend, which results on two-thirds of all crude contracts around the world and is commonly used as diesel fuel or gasoline. Secondly, the West Texas Intermediate, which is extracted in the United States and is really expensive to transport, thereby mainly used in the US. Thirdly, is lower grade than the two benchmarks above, is the Dubai Oman, which is mainly delivered to the Asian market.
In the following decades, the oil industry had to face how to compete against more eco-friendly resources and how to optimize the fuel reserves they have. Major oil companies are looking for alternative sources of energy as possible substitutes. For instance, the Chinese government tried to have the 15% from biofuels of its transportation fuel consumption by 2020. But however, in the other hand, we have the European Union that want to have the 20% for the same year. However, a lot of investment to get efficient energy from alternatives, as well as R plus D plus I and producing procedures is required. Nonetheless, the threat of substitution in these companies is high because oil-related products from other companies are highly substitutable for its own products.
Big international oil companies such as Chevron and Shell, and national oil companies such as Saudi Aramco and Gazprom have the ability to affect oil prices due to their high involvement in the three business segments, so their bargaining power is much greater than the buyers. As we can see on the picture on the left, it is obvious that OPEC countries control more than 80% of the world's oil reserves. In addition to that, we can see on the charts on the right that OPEC is producing more than 30% of the oil. These two factors explain well how they can change the price radically by adding or cutting production.
Oil and gas sector is known for its intensive competition with over 250 companies that are sharing the market, led by Saudi Aramco, Sinopec, China National Petroleum Corporation, PetroChina and ExxonMobil. Three of them are Chinese. It shows the intensity of the Chinese competition. Usually when they are intensive rivalry, Companies tend to attract customers with price cuts. However, all companies have less power over price due to the control of OPEC and governmental regulation. In certain European countries, government employs high taxes that raise the overall price of oil. It directly affects the population consumption and the revenues of the companies that have low margin on it. Due to the high price of gas, drivers are really attentive to small changes in price. The other downfall is the difficulty to have loyal customers, as they usually follow the prices. However, for the same expense, good quality is usually privileged. The quality of the oil has a direct impact on the car's performance and life. This is why biggest companies usually advertise on this area to differentiate from the others.
Politics is quite an important factor in the environment of the oil and gas industry. It has both a strong influence on the industry itself, and the industry has an influence on politics as such as well. First of all, oil and gas has influenced global political relations mainly through the existence of the OPEC, which has given a lot of diplomatic power to the members of this organization. The fact that the United States is not part of this organization means that there is a front against America, which is usually seen as the leading actor in a lot of international collaborations. Furthermore, politics also influence the oil and gas industry, particularly in the way that renewable energies are being pushed by politics, which negatively impact the oil and gas industry, and also the political instability of the OPEC countries threatening the industry as a whole.
The connection between the oil and gas sector with the global economy is really important, and they are in constant interaction with each other. For example, with the US economy, we can see that if the oil prices increase, it's going to create more job and investment opportunities. On the other hand, if oil prices decrease, it's going to be bad for unconventional oil activity, but good for manufacturing activities. Another economical factor is that some countries' economy depend on oil, such as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Aramco is the state-owned company of Saudi Arabia and is by far the biggest oil company in the world. Finally, we can see that there is a tight correlation of crude oil with worldwide currency for three reasons. First, the contracts are quoted in US dollar, which have an immediate impact on related process. Second, high dependence on crude oil exports levels national economies to uptrends and downtrends in the energy markets. And third, collapsing crude oil prices will trigger sympathetic declines in industrial commodities, raising the threat of worldwide deflation, forcing currency pairs to reprice relationships.
Most populations do not rely on fuel and oil consumption because they are really harmful both for people and for the world environment. However, in rich countries, a huge debate is partly open between security profits from the extraction and the environmental issue. Analyzing, for instance, the Neste, the fuel producer company, they assume in their last annual report that our refineries of renewable products are technically capable of running on 100% waste and residues to produce a broad range of premium quality renewable products. The Neste company is a clear example of how they want to transform the trend into a renewable fuel consumption, as we can see in the following chart. It's easy to realize that they produce a 90% small life cycle emission with their renewable diesel. The transportation from fuel and oil consumption is also such a terrifying issue for population. We have the clear example of Prestige oil disaster where the vessel collapses and the 77,000 tons of fuel oil were sunk into the northern Spanish Sea. $3 billion were spent cleaning up the sea, but the environmental damage were irreversible.
Regarding the technological aspect, the oil and gas companies already work on saving costs. However, this is really difficult to achieve if it isn't in any of the up, mid, or downstreams. Where they can save money may be on the quality or security of the oil, or even in the transport of the raw material. New innovations can bring better productivity rates, which must be applied in the exploration, exploitation, transport, or storage phase. In order to fight against the new alternatives, oil and gas companies work on finding new hydrocarbon discoveries.
The oil and gas industry is one of the most polluting in the world, releasing a consequent amount of greenhouse effect gases in the air, which highly contribute to the climate change. Because of it, the industry is facing a negative social attention. This situation pushes people to reduce their consumption of gas and plastic. To face this downfall, companies started to improve their technology to ecological and environmental aspects. Enhancing the technology can also aim to reduce costs. However, the future of the industry is not really bright. New technologies such as electric cars will greatly expand in the coming years. If the consumption continues like this, the world will soon face a shortage of this unrenewable energy. To stay afloat, companies should invest and prepare the future rotation, investing in ecological subsidies and pollution-free energies such as wind, solar, or hydrogen energies, which will be major in a few years. Companies of the oil industry need to prepare their future now if they want to vanish.